Chapter 1. I charged headlong through the bushes, my breath sounding harsh in my ears. Up ahead, I could hear my quarry as it bounded through the underbrush, its frightened squealing causing an uproar through the forest ahead of it. Honestly, I couldn't blame the poor animal for wanting to put as much distance as possible between the two of us, but I had needs too. A guy's gotta eat after all. I burst out of the underbrush into a clearing, blood pumping in my ears, the beast screaming in my brain. All that existed right at that moment was me and a 200-pound soul making a break for the other side of the clearing. It was fast. Real fast. Luckily for me, I was much, much faster. With one mighty leap, I landed on the poor animal, spearing it with my long, sharp talons. Unfortunately, I had missed its heart, so the poor thing was still struggling underneath my powerful, gruesome frame. I'm no sadist, so I ended its suffering with one swift stroke of my claw to its neck, killing it instantly. With a simple muscle twitch, I sheathed my foot-long claws back into my fingers. I shivered a bit as the blades moved up my hands and into my forearms. The feeling still unpleasant, even after all this time. How long has it been? Months? Years? I thought morosely to myself. My dark thoughts were interrupted as my sharp ears picked up the sound of a snapping twig. My head quickly turned at the sound, allowing me to see something that made my blood run cold. Standing just at the tree line of the clearing was one of the natives of this planet. She was a beige pony-like creature with a bright orange mane and tail. On each of her flank was a tattoo of a bushel of carrots, and on her face was an expression of abject terror. Oh crap baskets, I thought to myself as the orange pony turned and started to run. Carrot Top was fuming. That stallion is so infuriating, she thought as she stomped her way through Whitetail Woods. I can't believe that he would go and forget our anniversary like that. She kicked some of the autumn leaves out of her way, her rage building as she thought of her stallion. He had just gone up and gone to work. Not a word, not a kiss, nothing. Did I do something wrong, or... Her musings were interrupted by a loud crashing sound echoing through the woods. It sounded like some sort of wild pig, yet there was too much sound for it to be just that. There also seemed to be some kind of skittering around, probably from whatever predator was chasing the poor thing. Not wanting to be anywhere near predators on the hunt, Carrot Top started to turn and leave, but froze as two things burst out of the cover of the forest. The first wasn't all that surprising, considering all the noise she had heard earlier. It was a large sow, probably weighing somewhere around 200 pounds and running as if all of Tartarus were on her heels. The second thing was a nightmare. It was huge, standing probably 5 to 6 feet tall. It had a faintly gorilla-like look to it, except it was bald, gaunt, and sickly looking. Its pallid flesh has a slimy sheen on it, and it was so thin that she could see its ribcage stand out of its barrel. Blades-like spines burst from its back along its spine, giving it a faintly dragon-like appearance. Each of its long, spiny limbs ended in a 5-toed claw, with its foreclaws being much longer and sharper looking. Before she could comprehend what was happening, the monster reached the poor saw in a single bound, impaling the animal on its foot-long talons. The pig valiantly continued its struggle, trying desperately to get away from the nightmare that had just killed it. The creature was having none of that, however, and impassively ended the pig's struggles with a single swipe of its claw. At this point, Carrot Top had seen enough. Slowly, while the monster was distracted by its recent kill, she moved her hooves back. If I'm really quiet, I can get away while it's busy with its snap. The monster's head whipped around, and for the first time in her life, Carrot saw true terror. Its face, like the rest of its body, faintly reminded her of a gorilla in its shape and ears, but that's where the similarities ended. Its lidless eyes were pools of ebony through which Carrot Top was sure she could see eternity. It had no nose, rather just a hole in the center of its face, through which it breathed, while its lipless maw sported 2 rows of interlocking inch-long fangs. Drool dripped menacingly from its chin as it regarded her with an expressionless glare, its soulless eyes boring into her. For a single second, the two just stood there staring at each other. The creature seemed to almost deflate at the sight of her, which broke whatever spell was holding Carrot Top in flash. In a flash, Carrot Top turned and ran immediately to put as much distance as possible between herself and Nightmare. Her flight was ended before it even began, however, when she ran headlong into a trunk of the tree that stood directly behind her. She felt a blinding pain and then remembered no more. I would have winced if I still had the facial structure to do so. The poor mare had taken one look at my ugly mug and had wisely decided to make a hasty retreat. Unluckily for her, however, she had failed to notice the tree that stealthily spent the past 70 to 80 years growing in the exact spot where it could conk some poor soul attempting to flee from an alien monster. Her face made a loud thunk noise as it struck the evil wood, and instantly she was down. Carefully, I made my way over to her, checked if she was alright. The bump looked pretty nasty, and I could see a small trickle of blood drip down her forehead. However, her breathing was strong, so I was sure that the wound was just superficial. She would wake up in a couple of hours with a blinding headache, but otherwise she would be fine. However, I wasn't sure on her chances if left out in the woods. Animals might think that her body was up for grabs, or she might not wake up in time for sunset. Plus, my injury was kind of my fault. Well, mostly it was the tree's fault, but I couldn't exactly force the unmoving wood to pick her up and take her home. I knew that it was up to me to make sure that she got to safety. Sighing slightly to myself, I bent down and gently picked up the poor mare. So help me if I get chased by an angry mob for this. I'm going to kill you, tree, I thought vindictively as the offending plant grew. The tree, unable to hear my vehement oath of vengeance, just continued to stand there, smugly pleased that its 70-year evil plan had finally seen fruition. Sometimes it really sucks to be the good guy, I thought to myself.